here we are again for our final presentation tonight of our 6-part seminar series. And today we have Building Resilience and Hope with Dusko Miljevic. My name is Cherise Pauly, and I'm the Supervisor of Social Work and Attendance Counseling Services at the Greater Essex County District School, as well as a mental health lead. Again, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule in order to be a part of these presentations. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Dusko Miljevic.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here this evening to hear the talk on building resilience and hope. Thank you, Cherise, for the introduction. As Cherise said, my name is Dusko Miljevic, and I am a social worker and attendance counselor with the school board. So tonight we'll be talking about resilience and hope. I'm guessing there are two ingredients that are for sure helping us navigate the challenging times that we're going through. I just hope that you take an opportunity to settle in, that you take a moment to make yourself comfortable. And as you do that, as we go through the presentation, it may be helpful for you just to take notice of things that arise for you as we cover this evening's material, things that come up in terms of thoughts, emotions, or maybe even sensations. You might experience some aha moments. So I encourage you to just pay attention to the wisdom within as it may guide you towards glimmers of hope and resilience that can serve you and your loved ones. So this week, like I said, building resilience and hope. It's our final talk. In terms of just the overview of the presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll touch on what is resilience, what are those things that make people resilient. We'll talk about the relationship between stress and resilience. We'll talk about 9 ingredients to resilience. And then we are going to spend the last part of this evening talking about positivity and hope and ways that we can cultivate more positivity and hope in our lives, that it is really needed right now. And then finally, we'll just end it off with some questions and comments that you guys may have. Okay, so for most people, the COVID-19 pandemic has raised concerns related to danger, to safety, and the need for protection. While for some people, this danger has added to already existing trauma, adversity, and stressors that they may already have been dealing with. But for others, the pandemic brings brand new grief, brand new loss, and trauma. Also, for many families, they may have experienced secondary difficulties related to the social isolation, not having a support system. For some people, loss of employment, and also for others, unmet basic needs. So I think the important piece here to highlight is that as people, it is quite natural for us to absorb and in turn match the energy that's happening in the world right now. So our collective human grief, fear, stress, and anxiety. What is important is for us to acknowledge that these types of losses have in fact taken a toll, which we can see in people around us through symptoms of physical and symptoms of emotional exhaustion. But I think it's also important to highlight and acknowledge that, ourselves, our families, our schools, our communities, and our children are all doing the best that we can with the internal and external resources that are currently available to us. So acknowledging the current reality of collective trauma, of collective grief, and of heightened state of anxiety in the world, is really important, and I think it can help our children. It can help us normalize for children their feelings of loss and anxiety, which will help to undo feelings of aloneness and help create a feeling of we are in this together and we can get through this together. The impact has been worldwide, and it is very unique to each person. So it is really, really important that during this time we are gentle with ourselves, and also gentle with other people, because compassion towards ourselves and others will be key during these difficult times. Okay, so what is resilience? Well, resilience, we can think of it as our ability to bounce back or our ability to overcome serious adversity or serious challenges. We can also think of it as a combination of protective factors. For example, a nurturing home, and all those things that help us adapt. It's not something that we're born with, therefore it is not something that is static. It's something that can change, and it is produced through the interaction between a person and the things in their environment. And one of the things that keeps coming up over and over and over through research is that supportive relationships are the key ingredient needed for us to build resilience, and key ingredient in helping people bounce back from challenging situations and events. So I think the really important point to take away home is that as human beings, we are biologically wired for human connection. And you know, a quote that's really stuck with me over the years has been that all children require relationships in order to thrive, and children who've experienced adverse experiences require healthy relationships in order to heal. In order for us to understand how resilience develops, it may be helpful for us to picture in our minds a balance scale or a seesaw. So on the one side, we can have protective experiences and also skills, talents, all those positive things that serve to counterbalance challenges, barriers, or adversity on the other side. So what we want to do is we want to work towards helping to stack positive experiences so that they can outweigh negative ones and can tip the scale towards positive outcomes. And I'll talk to you guys about what those positive experiences entail. Another way to think about resilience is we can think of it as, symbolically, we can think of it as the quality of the soil in which children grow. So it is important for us to think about what role does, the child's home, their school, their neighborhood, and their community play in determining their level of resilience. And sometimes when we think of resilience, we may feel tempted to focus solely on the individual person without taking into consideration the impact and the role that their environment plays. So resilience can also be thought of as the ability of a person to navigate their way towards different resources that help promote their well-being. And it's also the person's ability to negotiate with their environment to ensure that the resources that they're being given and provided make sense to that person, that they are person-centered, and that they are culturally sensitive. what is the relationship between stress and resilience? So according to Dr. Bruce Perry, he says that we need stress in order to help us learn, to grow, and to develop in healthy ways. And it is an essential element in building of resilience. What his work has found, though, is that the key factor in determining if a particular stressor is going to be positive or destructive is the pattern with which that stress happens. So if we look at this little graphic that I made in terms of pattern and stress on the left side, if the stressor is unpredictable, so we're not sure when it's going to happen. If it is extreme, meaning it's overwhelming, it's really threatening, and it's prolonged, it just happening over and over again versus us having an opportunity, to go to our safe haven to regroup. In these situations, this can lead to vulnerability or sensitivity in people. On the other side, on the right side, if a stressor is predictable, so we have an idea of when it's going to come our way, if it's moderate, so it stresses us out, but it doesn't overwhelm us, and it's controllable, meaning we can put in place some measures to deal with it, we can come out resilient. We've been living in the pandemic for over a year now, and what's happened is that it has prolonged our stress activation and our stress response. So typically when people deal with stressful situations or events, it is normal for us to experience an increase in our level of arousal and our level of stress so that we can try to cope with the stressor that's in front of us. But when we leave the stressful situation, the stress level naturally and or eventually comes down. So because we've been in the pandemic for a while and our stress response is more activated, it is resulting in us basically experiencing physical and emotional exhaustion. And one important thing to note about stress is that it shuts down our cortical functioning or our thinking brain. So the takeaway point here is it is really, really important to keep in mind this information when we are setting expectations on ourselves and on our children. It is important to understand that there's probably going to be a lot more fatigue, less capability to stay focused and to concentrate, and maybe even more irritability. So again, so important for us to be gentle with ourselves, with others, because we simply cannot have the same expectations that we had at the beginning of a normal school year. Dr. Perry also talks about that, the most important and the most powerful buffer in times of stress is our social connectedness. So while it is important for all of us to practice physical distancing, may we try our best to remain emotionally close to each other, to reach out to each other and connect with our people, even if it is virtually. So to maintain and to build resilience, it is really, really important for us to introduce structure, to introduce predictability, moderation, and controllability into our lives. One of the ways that we can do this is through, in terms of daily structure. We can develop visual schedules for our children, for ourselves, that tell us what our day is going to look like. So carving out some time for regular family meals, limiting media exposure, ensuring that we're taking care of our bodies through healthy physical movement, healthy diet and exercise, taking time to socially connect, helping others in some way, practicing good sleep hygiene, and staying positive in our thinking and remaining future focused. Another piece that is really important for us to understand is, while anxiety is contagious and we tend to match the energy in our environment, calm is also contagious. So a calm and a regulated person can help regulate someone that is in distress. But if we ourselves are dysregulated, it's going to be really hard for us to calm others. Therefore, self-care equals self-regulation, which equals calm, which equals, our energy becoming contagious in the environment. Another piece that I just want to touch on before we move on is, Dr. Perry talks about something called dosing and spacing. And what he means by this is that it may be helpful for us to balance content, learning, and instruction with breaks that are built in. And these regulatory breaks can really be helpful because they help to refresh our brain, they help to refresh our thinking, but they also can help us consolidate learning and process information better. So, smaller doses of instruction followed by break and then repeating that cycle again. And the more dysregulated a person is, the more of spacing they're going to need. So they might need more frequent regulatory breaks. 3 levels of influence on resilience: individual, family, and environment. Individual factors make us who we are, and they help us become the people that we're going to be. While each one of these is important, I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that they need to happen against a background of supportive relationships. Relationships are key. You guys are going to hear me say that often this evening. So the first thing being temperaments. So children are born with different types of temperaments, and this influences their interaction with the environment, right? So a child that is born with an easier temperament, they might, the bonding experience between that child and their caregiver may be easier versus a child that may have a bit of a difficult temperament. So what research tells us, though, is that infants and children who are treated with warmth, with care, with sensitivity, are more likely to become resilient and well adapted. In terms of learning strengths, here we're talking about the combination between inborn intelligence and what our children acquire through their formal and informal education. So giving children different types of learning opportunities, different types of learning environments can help them develop their awareness, their imagination, initiative, but also important decision-making skills. With respect to feelings and emotions, it is important for us to help children develop good emotion regulation skills. And the best way for us to do this is by talking with them about how they may be feeling in a particular moment, and giving them tips and tools in terms of how they can handle their emotions. So there's a host of research studies that have been summarized into something called name it to tame it. So when we actually name the emotional experience for the child, we tap into their thinking brain, which can help them arrive quicker to a moment of calm, a moment of being able to co-regulate that emotion. So one of the things that you could do is you could say to them, I notice, you're scrunching your face, or I notice that you're holding your hands in fists and your face looks really red. I wonder if you're feeling frustrated and angry right now. And then, seeing what they do with that, because maybe we have the wrong emotion labeled. So checking in with our kids is really important, but then also providing that calm and saying something like, I am right here. I will stay with you. Together we will get through this. And it's this repetition that helps children develop their emotion regulation skills. In terms of self-concept, so we are a mirror for our children. So the sense of self is basically shaped through their interactions with the people in their life. So when we accept our children for who they are more likely to feel good about themselves. And the way we speak with them, the way we interact with them, influences their developing inner voice, right? So that voice that they hear inside themselves. And what happens with children is they internalize our relationships with them. And this in turn influences how they see themselves, how they see other people, but also how they see the world. Ways of thinking. So here we really want to be mindful, and we want to pay attention to teaching our children about the impact of certain types of thinking and how certain types of thinking affect how we feel and ultimately how we behave. So having them examine helpfulness of, a negative thought and coaching them towards replacing negative automatic thoughts with more helpful, positive thoughts can help reduce their level of stress. And it can also improve their sense of well-being. So an example could be if they have an automatic negative thought that says, I'm not smart enough. Well, that's going to cause them to feel anxious. And the behavior that might result from that could be avoidance and or giving up, versus having a more productive thought such as, this is really difficult. I need some help. It is okay to ask for help. Meaning I feel more optimistic, and then I will work on it for 10 minutes and then take a short break. So this is all about helping our kids develop something called a growth mindset, knowing that intelligence is not something that is fixed, but something that can develop. With younger ones, it's when you're teaching them about automatic negative thoughts, you can use metaphors of little ants. And so ANTS as an acronym that stands for automatic negative thoughts, and you want them to become like almost like ant detectives so that they can catch their thought. And then you can kind of sit with them and evaluate, is it a helpful thought or not a helpful thought, and move them towards something that is more helpful. In terms of adaptive skills, so helping kids develop goals, helping them through talking with them, identify barriers, understand impacts of barriers on them, and working collaboratively with them in identifying solutions can help them persevere, develop that growth mindset, and build resilience. But once again, we do this within a context of a safe, tuned, and loving relationship, and by talking with them. And then finally, the last one on this level is social skills. So this is all lived experience, right? So giving them experiences of interacting with other people, allowing them to, have moments where they might make a mistake, but also coaching them and letting them know, that relationships, there are moments of connection. And then something might happen where there's a break in the relationship, but then we can also repair relationships, right? And kind of coaching them through that process. Okay, in terms of family factors, the first one being attachment. So having a strong, positive, emotional attachment or connection to a caring, loving adult throughout childhood and adolescence is key to being resilient. And this can include parents, it can include guardians, it can include extended family, and it can also include family friends. On a communication level, talking with our children is the key to making sure that we remain attuned. What I mean by that is that we actually understand and that we actually get them, and letting them know that we are there for them. This helps them develop their thinking skills. But I think the key here is that we really, really need to be mindful of our own, it's not so much about what we say, it's also how we say it. So our nonverbal communication is key. So ask yourself, when I am connecting with my child and or someone else, how is my posture? How is my tone of voice? How is the pace of words? At what pace am I kind of throwing words at the person? But also, what are they seeing in terms of my facial expressions? So the key here is, especially if we're dealing with a child that is struggling with their emotions, they're not so much hearing our words, they're paying a lot of attention to our nonverbal communication. Finally, asking ourselves, have I checked in with them to ensure they understood me? And have I given them time to process the information? So, I talked about how stress shuts down our thinking brain. So it's really important for us to make sure that we gain their attention when we're speaking with them, but also to give them time to process the words that are coming at them. With respect to family structure, we all know that families come in different shapes and sizes, and the key here is for children to feel emotionally and physically safe, and that they feel like they belong within their family unit where adults who support them and nurture them do so consistently. So consistency is key here. And then in terms of parent relationships, demonstrating and modeling for children healthy partnerships where partners are supportive of each other, where they model calm, where they model stability, are on the same page. They model good communication skills, warmth, affection, and this is the sort of stuff that helps children develop resilience. Parenting style. So here, once again, self-reflection. It may be helpful to ask yourself, what is my parenting style? Do I have a balance between the amount of corrections that I do and connection with my child? Do I provide and do I ensure that I'm also channeling the energy of nurture, of structure, of engaging with my child, of challenging them and letting them kind of problem solve for themselves before jumping in and solving problems for them, being playful, being accepting, being curious, and just offering empathy, right? And for our children to grow into empathic people, we need to empathize first with their point of view. Sibling relationships are important, encouraging values of sharing, of cooperation, and discouraging things like teasing, over competitiveness, limiting the amount of sarcasm that we use with our children. Once again here, what are the rules that you have in your home that tell them how they should behave? Parent health is super important. I when I talk to parents, I tell them you guys are the anchors for them in their world. So your own good physical and mental health are a key to be able to meet the emotional needs of our children. So self-awareness and modeling of calm is key. Finally, support outside of the family, having supportive family networks and community resources may be helpful to a young person's development. In terms of environmental factors, we have inclusion, social condition, and youth involvement. So children basically, well, we know this, they need to feel like they belong. They need to feel respected and included with respect to their gender, with respect to their sexual orientation, culture, religious and spiritual beliefs. Having access to basic needs such as food, housing, safe neighborhoods, health, education, recreation, freedom from oppression, and also access to positive media images. And it's also important to have youth be able to participate meaningfully in their environment, and this serves to increase feelings of connection and also decrease a sense of isolation. Okay, so the roadmap to resilience. 9 ingredients. So through his research, Dr. Michael Ungar, who is a Canadian researcher on resilience, he's identified a recurring pattern, so something that keeps coming up over and over again, of 9 factors that are present in the lives of children who show resilience. And what research tells us is that the more these are present in a child's life, the more likely they will be protected from negative outcomes that may follow adverse experiences. And they can be improved upon, which is a good thing. So let's see what they are. Okay. So the first one is structure. So children need a reasonable and developmentally appropriate level of structure in their lives. Structure allows them to believe that we care about them, but also that, it helps them feel safe. So how do we do this? Well, the ways to incorporate it is to have explicit rules in your home for your children. You can have 3 to 5 household rules that are positively stated, telling children what they should do instead of what they should not do, right? And also making sure that we adhere to those rules that we set in place. The other pieces around modeling healthy behaviors and skills, maintaining daily family routines. So sticking to usual rising times, meal times, play times, learning times, quiet time, and bedtime. So you can also have children be involved in the creation of their daily routines. It may be helpful, as I said at the beginning, to have a visual schedule that you reference regularly. But I think it's also important to incorporate connection, play, and rest into this daily structure. And also having interesting things to do at home. And reasonable limits, and also offering choices to our children. In terms of consequences, consequences remind children, good consequences remind children that they are still part of their families, schools, communities, and are accountable for the harm that they may cause to others. So consequences help children develop their sense of judgment and other important problem-solving skills, helps them stay accountable. But good consequences really rest on the foundation of us being emotionally available to them and not excluding them when we are providing consequences. Ways that we can incorporate consequences. Well, the most important one is to always make sure that your child is safe and that their needs are met. Connection before correction. So it is important for us to connect with our child, let them know what we've observed in a non-shaming, non-judgmental way, ask them what happened, hear their point of view prior to jumping to problem solving, right? So because if they're upset, heading straight for that reasoning part of the brain with the expectation of learning will not work if they are dysregulated and disconnected from us. So relationship removal should never be used as a discipline strategy. So ignoring our children, things like that. And also we want to show them how they can correct their behavior. And we want our consequences to be focused on relationship repair and that they're actually logically connected to the behavior that occurred. Okay, parent-child connection. So I mean, I've already talked about how important relationships are, and they are a key predictor of resilience, the relationship between a caregiver and the child. But it's also important to recognize the role of extended family, of school, and broader community in helping children feel that sense of belonging. And this connection can look different at different developmental stages. Some practical strategies include physical contact, daily quality time with our children, making ourselves available emotionally and giving them undivided attention when they're connecting with us and speaking with us, talking with them, inquiring about their interests and activities, having family meals together, and incorporating fun, play, and rest into our daily schedules. Once again, connections, right? So children need healthy relationships with other people as they move from dependence to interdependence. And I use the term here, interdependence, because we biologically crave human connection and we are interdependent on each other because we are relational creatures. Healthy relationships, we know they increase our feelings of well-being and contentment, and they are a requirement for feeling safe. And this allows us basically to go out and explore and figure stuff out. And then if something overwhelming happens to us, we just go to our support system, make sense of it, and then we go back out again. Early childhood experiences and interaction between the child and their significant others determines their ability to regulate their affective states. Social support is not the same as just being in the presence of other people. It's really about being truly heard, seen by the people around us. And for our physiology to calm down, to heal, and to grow, we need to feel safe within relationships. And the more healthy relationships, the better, right? So practical strategies, supporting children in remaining socially connected, witnessing and celebrating the successes of our children, and providing access to family, peers, community, even if it is virtually. Powerful identity. You know, I talked about us serving as mirrors to our children. This provides them with a sense of value. So providing them opportunities where they develop their identity and the things that they enjoy, supporting them as they go out into the world to explore, supporting them in identifying positive role models, encouraging them to volunteer, to work, just so that they can develop their skills and their sense of self. A sense of control is really important. It helps children to learn consequences of their actions. And it also allows children to fail in a way that is tolerable, and identify other ways to achieve their goals. So once again, it's that growth mindset, but it also giving them a sense of control and not being overly protective helps them develop something called a risk taker advantage that will help them develop their skills. Ways to do this is age appropriate decisions. So for example, what they wear, what they eat, when they go to bed. But if the choices begin to cause problems, we can use them as teachable moments and coach them towards making better decisions that are going to be better for their well-being. Not being shy about sharing with our children what may have caused, a failure or a barrier, maybe even giving them an allowance and kind of giving them an opportunity to manage their own money. These are types of things that can help them develop their skills and sense of control. A sense of belonging, is such a protective thing. It's so important. Being recognized and accepted for their unique differences and their contributions. This is important across environments. So here we want to give our kids access to different types of activities and groups, or nurture family traditions and have our children be a part of these. If you've lost touch with your family traditions, maybe you can help your child be a part of kind of reclaiming those traditions. Fair and just treatment. Once again, all the environments should be places where our young people feel safe and protected from discrimination, from different types of injustice. And adults should educate their children about their rights so that they can learn to advocate for themselves. Some strategies that you may try is sharing stories of overcoming your own adversity when you were a child, telling your child about diversity and welcoming people of diverse backgrounds into your support system, educating them about what's happening in the world to an appropriate level, and avoiding overprotecting them. Finally, physical and psychological safety. Our children need access to resources that help them feel safe, that help them feel healthy, so food, housing, safe streets, safe schools, and strategies are making sure that they are taking care of their physical health, caregiver health and well-being, connecting with the child to what they're trying to communicate to us with their behaviors, and then finally having access and connect them with their supports, developing a resource map with them about who are the people in their lives that can help them. So when I was looking for a quote on hope, this one really spoke to me, and I think it really speaks to what hope is. So a rainbow is a prism that sends shards of multicolored lights in various directions. It lifts our spirit and makes us think of what is possible. Hope is the same, a personal rainbow of the mind. So I really, really like this quote, and it really speaks to what positive emotions do to our mind. So what is the power of positive emotions? Positivity helps to open us up. It makes us more receptive, more creative, and positive emotions can broaden our ideas about possible actions, and opening our awareness to a wider range of thoughts, actions than is typical. So through this process, positive emotions allow us to discover and build new skills, new ties, new knowledge, and new ways of being. These types of emotions, what researchers are finding is that they may have been helpful and important to our human ancestors because they helped them develop and build resources for the future. because positivity really does affect our outlook on life, and it expands our peripheral vision, allowing us to see more than we typically do. So we know that emotions are, we're born with them. They help us survive. Negative emotions also have a purpose. They narrow our thinking and our possibilities because they focus solely on survival. And positive emotions have a great effect on our overall well-being, and they have been known to calm our heart, and they can bring down blood pressure to normal levels after a stressful event. Okay, so hope as one of the forms of positivity. So researchers are identifying 10 forms of positive emotions that color people's daily lives the most. So joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. So I would encourage you guys to take a moment to ask yourselves, when was the last time I felt this feeling? Where was I and what was I doing? What situations triggered me to feel this way? And what can I do right now in this moment to cultivate more of these feelings? So most of the emotions that I just listed come up when we are feeling safe and when we're feeling satisfied. Hope is a little bit different because hope arises when our circumstances are dire. When we feel hope is that belief that things can change and things can get better no matter what the circumstances are that are before us. It keeps us collapsing into despair, and it motivates us to draw on our own inner resources and inspires us to plan for a better future. And hope helps us get in touch with our gratitude, our love, and other positive emotions. And it can help us open our hearts, open our minds, allowing us to bounce back from adversity and emerge stronger than before. So the greater 3 to 1 positivity ratio. So through her researcher Barbara Fredrickson and another researcher developed a prescription of a greater than 3 to 1 ratio, which reportedly serves as a tipping point, which can help us transform and decide or determine whether or not and predict whether or not we're going to languish or flourish. So what they mean by this is that for every heart-wrenching negative emotional experience that we survive and endure, we should experience at least 3 heartfelt positive emotional experiences that help us lift our spirits. So a word of caution here, we just want to be mindful that, we don't get up in the morning and we just say, oh, today I'm just going to be positive and that's it, because this can backfire. The positivity that researchers are talking about here is positivity that is genuine and positivity that is heartfelt. And so what research is also finding is that for most people, their ratio is 2 to 1, and this is when life is ordinary, but we're not necessarily growing. So how do we do it in an authentic way, in a genuine way that is heartfelt? So this is the toolkit, right? Self-study is key here, being mindful of ourselves, reflecting and kind of paying attention to what's coming up for us. Openness, so being open, practicing acceptance, and observing the life as it unfolds before us in a non-judgmental way. having high quality connections where there is mutual appreciation, where there is true presence, and we are like the people that we're with, they recharge our energy and we recharge their energy, and we feel it inside of our bodies. These types of connections are founded on respectful engagement, on presence, and just being supportive, trustworthy, and playful. Cultivating kindness is another way that we can invite more positivity in our lives, and we can do this by making a goal of performing 5 new acts of kindness daily. That is just an idea. But it has to be something that you're doing genuinely, right? Developing distractions can help us break patterns of negativity and rumination. So it may be helpful to develop a list of distractions ahead of time. Challenge negative thinking. I spoke of that earlier. Connecting with nature, going for walks, spending time outdoors, staying physically active. Figuring out what you're good at, knowing what your strengths are, and applying them to the problems in front of you. Meditating mindfully, being aware of the present moment, grounding yourself in the here and now, and recognizing that everything happens in the here and now, instead of allowing our thoughts to take us to the past or too far into the future where we become overwhelmed. Coming back to the here and now will help us. Loving kindness, making well wishes for ourselves, taking deep breaths, slowing down, giving ourselves permission to slow down, practicing gratitude with ourselves and with our family members at the start of our day, naming 3 things we're thankful for, and maybe even at the end of the day, 3 things that we're grateful for. So it's really about training our attention, savoring experiences of positivity. So when something positive happens, almost taking like a mental picture of it and just breathing that experience in. And then finally, visualizing your future, setting your goals, maybe even creating a vision board of things that you want to accomplish for yourself so that you take small steps towards your goals. In terms of some resources that I thought I'd share with you guys, the first one is to learn more about resilience. There is a game that you can play. It has different scenarios, and your job is to see what types of resources you would apply to the scenario to see the impact it would have on the outcome of resilience. Thepositivityratio.com is where you can go and do a quick survey to figure out if you have the ratio of greater 3 to 1. And then finally, Dr. Tara Brach, who is a meditator and a psychologist, has a list of guided meditations that are available for free that you can access free of cost and listen to allow yourself to bring yourself into a place of calm. For more information, you can visit maryvale.ca or publicboard.ca to learn more about these series that we've done.